everyone, Therese here, back again with a new monthly plan with me video. Today we are setting up my September 2024 bullet journal, and if your spreads are still not set for this month, come plan along. Sometimes things can get hectic and it's okay to start whenever you can. Stay tuned, by the way, because I'm sharing the newest designs, stickers, art prints, and a new product on my website if you haven't seen them yet. But right now, let's begin my September 2024 bullet journal setup already. It's my third month on this Lila Journals dot grid notebook, and if you need more ideas, you can see the previous setups after watching this video. We will mainly use watercolors for this month's setup, but we will also be using brush pens and highlighters later. And of course, if you have other medium of preference, whether it's paint markers, colored pencils, or anything you might have even on your digital journal, you can illustrate these in your own style. We have a number 6 round brush and a small detail brush for the whole painting process. As always, you will find the supplies and links I'm using in this setup on the video description below. Let's focus on our September cover page. We like to start by gathering initial colors we need for the cover. The specific colors I'm using are shown on the screen, but you can also create similar shades using different color mixes that are available on your own watercolor set. My theme for September is fall foraging, but this cover page is related but a little different from the rest of the spreads. We are gonna be painting a fawn. We started by painting the oval background lightly with white, raw sienna, and raw umber mixture, and it's not quite visible on camera. But next we take a light consistency of yellow ochre to paint the first layer of our fawn's coat. And when it's dry, we can add our next layer of color, which is a light consistency of burnt sienna. And we will skip the parts around its neck, ear, eye, arm, and around its feet because we will be painting flowers in front of it later. And after that, we can add more pigment of burnt sienna to add shadows and create dimension. And after that, we can add more pigment of burnt sienna to add shadows and create dimension. We are applying this on both ears, but the other one is just the outer area. Then around the nose with slightly dragging the paint on top of the eye and mouth. Then on the back of its neck, on the body that is in between the thigh and neck, on its back towards the nose, on the tail which is kind of hidden, and on the legs. We like to go with this in light layers because we can always build it up with darker colors until we are satisfied with how dark some parts of our painting are. And that is the next thing we are doing. With our detail brush, we are using this burnt umber or dark brown to paint the details, which helps our painting to look a bit sharp. This is the time we can paint the nose, mouth, hood, and eye. And I'm taking my time with the eye here because it is so small. Then we also define the edges around the ears and in between each part of the body. Once we're done with the painting, we can add the white spots. I chose to do this using a white gel pen instead, and I'm using the Sakura white jelly roll to draw these random shaped spots. And after that, we can add some more shadows around them and also a bit of fur texture. Alright, that's pretty much it for this fawn painting. I hope you give it a try. Next, we painted some pink flowers surrounding the fawn. These don't have to be super detailed. We can do these loosely compared to the fawn, and I just painted the shapes with light pink and dark brown on the center. Then we have the little stems and leaves using olive green, and we are also painting a fern behind with the same shade of green for the leaves and brown for the stem. Under the fawn is a bed of grass which we painted using dark olive green and darkened it a bit more with Van Dyke brown. We are extending the shadows a little bit using diluted burnt umber and create little grass strokes. Next, we are painting this oval-shaped lace around the background using white and raw sienna. We are just doing a basic lace pattern. They are kind of like triangular shaped. Then we're gonna be using the fine liner tip of this Ohuhu dual marker to draw a stitch pattern around the oval-shaped background and lace. The idea of this cover is like an embroidered journal cover. I'm seeing a lot of them lately on Instagram and they are so cute. Lila Journals happen to have a similar journal cover. She just released a few days ago, so if you want to check that out. But after that, I wanted to make this illustration, especially the lace, to pop a bit more by painting a green background using a mix of Viridian, Sap Green, and Van Dyke Brown. I wanted this to look more solid, but the paint is not doing it, so I thought I might just use a brush pen, and Ohuhu happens to have a shade close to it, so that's what we are using here instead. Then we are also using a darker green to outline the lace. Okay, that's now done. The next elements we are painting are autumn leaves around the corners. We start with a yellow-green base and layered by burnt sienna. To make them look crisp, we paint the edges and veins with burnt umber and Van Dyke Brown. For our monthly title, we are painting this metal plate that are commonly used in vintage journals or books. We are using raw umber to paint the whole shape with 2 round holes on both sides. Then we can write September in this cursive style using the Ohuhu fine liner tip. I realized it has the same color too, so it looks more vintage. I wanted to do a gingham background for this cover and make the lines as straight as possible using washi tapes. I'm using a beige color Ecoline brush pen here to draw thick lines in between the washi tapes and then rearrange them again for the next line. Everything was fine until I made a mistake, and I don't know how to fix that with a pen or something, so I just printed the pattern and cut out the painted ones. I wasn't able to show you how I cut them, but you can imagine how tedious it was. So here it is. I am just gluing it over. The cuts are not precise though, so we are just filling those areas too with paint. And that's finally our remedied cover page. Anyway, let's focus on the page next to it to create a simple September calendar. We are using the brush tip of the same color of Ohuhu brush pen we used earlier to write 09 in bold style on the top left. Since I already spent quite some time on the cover, I just wanted to pair it with something simple and quick. Next, using the same green brush pen, we are drawing the background shape for the days of the week. We are drawing the rows with a fine tip and writing important dates above in cursive. I'm honestly unsure of my font choices for this setup, but anyway, I already wrote all the days and dates with white and black pen respectively. I wanted this to be simple, but I feel like decorating the negative spaces a little bit using some scraps from the gingham paper background and the washi tape from Paper Monogatari. I forgot to do this earlier, but I'm supposed to draw these broken lines like stitches as well on the cover. But okay, that's finally it for my September cover and calendar spread. I hope you like the end result. Next, we flip through the following pages to create a monthly planning spread. We are doing a painted frame for this whole spread with forest elements. We're gonna do this one element at a time, so we start by painting the base of these woods entwined together using raw umber, raw sienna, and white mixture. After that, we can take more pigment of raw umber and raw sienna to paint the darker areas and to also create texture. If it's your first time using watercolors or your pages are a bit on the thinner side, you want to control the amount of water you load on your brush so that it doesn't bleed through. The amount will depend on the size of the part you want to paint on, and it's ideal to use the right size of brush. So in this example, number 6 round brush is a good size, and we're loading it just enough to cover the whole area we need to paint. And sometimes it may run out and you can load it some more, but if you happen to apply more than what's needed, you can dry your brush on a tissue paper and lift the excess water off the page using it. Next, we can paint the leaves with olive green. We have those with bigger and smaller blades, as well as thin ones for the fern. Then we slightly add raw umber with our olive green to paint the veins. Painting the details, by the way, requires little amount of water. That way we have more pigment on our brush, making them look sharp. On the upper left corner, we have a wood log. We paint the inside with white and raw sienna mix and burnt umber for the textured outer surface or the bark and circular patterns. There's also a couple of white flowers that we quickly painted under it. We just paint the center with yellow and slightly outline the petals. To the bottom left, we have a pair of fly agaric mushrooms. I know they're not one to forage, but maybe we can include them just for the design. And by the way, if you want to practice painting mushrooms more, I have a dedicated video tutorial for that in the channel where we paint several kinds of mushrooms step by step. There's definitely many ways and different color combinations to paint mushrooms. In here, we use the same white and raw umber mix to paint the stems and gills, yellow ochre, and a bit of burnt sienna for the base of the cap instead of just going directly with red. So we can have that warm undertone. I mostly do wet on dry technique, which is allowing the previous layer to dry first. Sometimes I like testing the page and do a little wet on wet technique, so I already added pigmented red deep and red mixed with sepia while the same layer is still wet. Doing a pen test on the back page of your journal can help, and since I already tested this before, I know that the page of this notebook can handle it. But here, I'm not really pushing it to its limit. I'm just gradually adding color with thicker pigments on the wet surface to create a soft blend of colors and not making it even wetter. And if you're wondering why the page is not curling up or warping, I like using binder clips, as you can see here, to keep the pages flat, and it will stay that way until the paint dries. It's a common item, but certainly an essential one to have when painting on a journal. So we continued working on adding the dark outlines and shadows to build the shape and textures of our mushrooms with raw umber and a bit of Van Dyke brown to make it darker. When we're done, it's time to add the white spores. We can do this by using a white gel pen on top of the paint. Then we're just going back again to paint more shadows using permanent red deep around the spores to make them pop a little bit. While we still have red paint on our brush, we can also add some red berries around the woods. Now we're painting another kind of mushroom on the top right corner, which is chanterelle. We are painting 3 of them, starting again with our base using light yellow. Then we are adding a bit of burnt sienna to add shadows. After that, we're gonna add some more burnt sienna to our mix to paint the gills. We will have another fawn painting on the last corner. It's basically the same steps, so I didn't include it here anymore, so I hope you don't mind. Now the next thing we're doing is to draw the gingham pattern around it, just like our cover page, and I chose the zebra matte liner highlighter with a color close to the printed one. And again, it wasn't really how I wanted to turn out because I kind of messed up again with the lines. In my head, screw it, and just completed the whole pattern and move on to the next step. I'm using these spaces for my goals, focus, and notes section, so we're just writing these titles here with a black pen. I also decided to add these round stickers. I can write up to 3 goals for the month with corresponding actions I need to achieve them, and weekly focus, so we have 4 weeks here. Alright, that is my monthly planning spread for goals, focus, and notes. Moving on right away to create my interactive habit tracker. We are skipping a blank page here and another one behind the other side of the spread. Then we are painting a landscape with a bunch of mushrooms. I chose to paint just one kind, which is sep, or also called penny bun or porcini. But if you'd like to paint a variety in one place, you can do that too. Doing one kind, I guess, is just easier, and sep is one of the simplest mushrooms you can paint. I already made the sketch beforehand to guide me which mushrooms to paint and not to paint. I marked them with a cross just to be sure. You can paint on them all, but it's just that I don't want to paint them again. To make this painting interesting is to use different shades of brown, or maybe use some warm reddish tones or blend them together in one cap. And also play around with different sizes and heights to create a balanced composition. So we start by painting the caps with light consistency of raw sienna, then we paint and build them up one at a time. You can complete painting before moving on to the next cap, so you don't have to come back to them again, but whichever way you want, like completing one or do each layer for all at the same time. The last one was how I do it before when I have too many elements to paint, but I don't have a lot of time on my hands right now like it used to because of growing responsibilities. So as long as the paper can hold up to it, I'll do that. And I'm happy the pages of this notebook holds up. As you can see, I can add the shadows already as if I'm using a watercolor paper, but still proceed with caution so that there is no ghosting or bleed through. Another thing that adds to the confidence that I can relax and just use more water is knowing that I'll attach the back of these pages to the blank pages behind, so if ever there's bleed through, it's okay. I'm not worried about it. Alright, so we painted the stems with white and raw umber base, the shadows and details with raw sienna and Van Dyke brown. Next, we're painting some fallen leaves around. They can be on top of some mushrooms, in between them, or on the ground. Okay, now it's time to paint the mushrooms that I skipped painting on this spread on a separate paper. I am using a 160 GSM vellum board, which is already cut like this. These are for the trackers. I track 6 habits, so I will need 6 mushrooms, but I'm gonna be showing how I painted one of them here. I sketched the mushroom in the same size with how I sketched them on the spread itself. And under each mushroom, there should be a space that fit a mini calendar tracker. So we're doing the same steps for the separate mushroom painting, but we're also doing a slightly bitten cap. We are doing that by outlining the bite with the darker paint we are using for the shadows, and also adding more whites on the inside because I accidentally painted it with the base color, and that is also fine if you can do that just on top with a white gel pen or a pigmented white paint. The same colors and step goes with the stem. I forgot to secure the edges and I noticed it only when it started warping, so you could just tape some of the edges on a flat surface. Once the painting is done, we can cut the white spaces around the mushroom out and only leave the box under, and this is where we can draw the mini tracker. I like using these round shapes that I can just shade whenever I complete a habit for the day. So here are all the mushrooms I painted separately. There are 2 bigger ones which have 4x4 dot spaces and 4 smaller ones with 4x3 dot spaces for the mini calendar tracker. But before we can cut for the inserts, we want to paint the whole background first. We are using a bigger brush to paint the whole space with yellowish green. Then we are adding grasses, soil, and a lot of trees behind. So this is the part where I struggled finding the balance between the lighter and darker values. I started with the grasses, but as soon as I painted the trees and adding color to the spaces in between, the grasses kind of blended to them because I used the same shade of green for the trees, or maybe the tree trunks are not dark enough. Though I'm not able to do it here, I think I'll draw the grasses again with a darker shade using a brush pen instead. The mushrooms were fast to paint, but it took me a while for the background. I think just the grasses alone would look much better. Anyway, let's do some cutting to insert these mushrooms. This may look confusing, but it helps to place the mushrooms on top and align them to where you want them to be inserted. and mark them with a pen. It's okay to cut through the grass, but we won't be slicing off the mushrooms on the page. Instead, we just want to cut around them, and it's also better to paint smaller mushrooms on the foreground so the cut won't be too big, if that makes sense. You can take your time here and add a bit of allowance so they slide in and out with ease. Once we're done with the cutting, we can now attach the pages behind. You can keep the mushrooms inserted whilst putting the glue so you can see exactly where to slide them. We also want to attach the upper parts of the cuts as close as possible so they won't block the cards when pulling them out. I wasn't able to write the habits here, but I did write them later just above the tracker, and you can see that in the flip through in the end. Alright, we are just writing 09 again on the top right to finish off this interactive mushroom habit tracker spread. That was quite a tracker. It was time consuming than what I had planned, but I hope you enjoy the idea nevertheless. Moving on again is a spread for my devotional plan. I'll make it up here by making the layout truly simple. We're adding this gingham pattern print on the edge and writing the title on this vintage journal plate as well. The plan I chose is called the Forage. It is a 4-day plan that I'm taking from the Bible app. I'll provide the link in the video description as always, and I'm dedicating 4 spreads for this for more writing spaces with the edges cut out as well, and I will still be using the SOAP method or the scripture, observation, application, and prayer. Next to this is my review spread. I printed this green paper and matched the size of the gingham on the other side, decorated them with washi tapes and the round stickers too for each question, such as what am I grateful for, what are my small wins, challenges, lessons learned, and what I need to improve. I'm feeling a bit carefree here. Instead of the usual cohesive paintings throughout the setup, I decided to draw some mushrooms in black pen in a sketchy style. We have these 3 chanterelles beside the gratitude section and oyster mushrooms on a log on the to improve section. There is no right or wrong way to draw these, but you can add dimension and depth to them by shading or making some lines darker. I initially want to create a setup that looks like a foraging journal with fabric covers, hence the stitches we drew on the cover page. But I ended up doing a combination of both foraging and journaling. So the layout of this review page is more like the journaling side, where you want to document, draw, and paint the things you foraged in that specific time or specific adventure. So after the ink drawing, we are picking up our brush again to paint a branch of wild berries on the small ones section. We are using our detail brush to paint these little leaves with olive green, the thin branches with dark brown, red and blue for the berries, and some white flowers. Next is another painting of a sap using a reddish brown color for the cap and white raw umber mix for the stem. There is a hint of red actually that was left maybe from painting the cap, but in terms of the steps, it will still be the same. Then we also paint the soil-covered roots with dark brown. We do this by doing a tapping motion using the tip of our round brush. This will create a nice texture too. Then there is also a little leaf on top of the cap painted with yellow ochre and dark brown. After that, we are writing Forage below the painting in lowercase. And finally, we are just drawing some borders and lines for the writing spaces on each section. We are now down to the last pages we will be making in this video, which are my weekly spreads. I want to use Dutch doors here, so we cut 3 pages that will fit inside the forest woods frame we're gonna paint, just like from the monthly planning spread. Our base color is a little bit warmer this time. It's okay to use other woodsy color combinations, and likewise we paint the details with a darker shade. I cut out some gingham and green paper for the daily boxes and placed them alternately. We draw a little metal plate on the first gingham using our brush pen, and as we wait for the ink to be absorbed a bit, we write the verse of the week. I'm writing the verse I see first here on the Bible app, and it's from the Psalms 113 verse 3. From the rising of the sun to the place where it sets, the name of the Lord is to be praised. And then we can go back to write the week number above and the days and dates on each box with white and black pen alternately as well. So that is it for my weekly layout. And before we go, I'm so excited to share with you my newest collections that went live in the beginning of September. These are the Fall Forage and Lost in the Library collections, inspired by my latest monthly themes. On each, you will find 7 new sticker sheets, large vinyl sticker flakes, prints of my traditional and digital paintings, and a new product, notepads. And you can see the same design I did for the monthly planning spread and the Forager's notepad design. You can see most of the paintings here in sticker versions too. This is my biggest shop update this year, and I'm so grateful to everyone's support. You can get these on my website at tottocharizze.com. The link is always on the description box below. I recommend signing up to my email list as well if you want to receive updates and be the first to know about discount codes and sale in the future. Alright, that finally finishes our foraging inspired September 2024 bullet journal setup. We have come to the end of this video, so let's do a quick flip through of all the pages we made together. I really hope you enjoyed this plan with me video and inspired you with some new layouts and paintings. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. And please leave a like, and let's stay connected by subscribing to this channel if you want to see more art and bullet journaling videos from me. Thank you so much for your time watching and for your patience whenever I upload them late. Take care and have a cozy time this autumn season or wherever you are. Bye everyone!